Welcome, everyone, to Real Estate Accounting Reimagined, AI, automation, and expert outsourcing. We're very excited to share how technology and premier outsource capabilities are transforming real estate accounting. Today's session will cover why change is happening, what great looks like, how technology and outsourcing work together, and how you can get started. Let's begin with introductions. My name is Jim Lockhart. I'm a real estate partner here in our Manhattan office of Aprio. For those of you who don't know, Aprio is a top 25 CPA consulting firm. We go to market by industry, and our real estate industry is very large. We boast over 7,000 clients that do business in every part of the country and different countries as well. So joining me today to help with polls and questions, we have is Sarah from our real estate CAS practice. Sarah, why don't you introduce yourself and talk about your role today?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Belazak from Team Aprio. I sit in our Washington, D.C. office. As Jim mentioned, I'm a director on our real estate client accounting team, and I'm here to help with any questions you might have today. Feel free to message me if you have questions for me or our panelists, or if you need any help during today's call. There should be a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, but if you don't see it, if you hit the More button, there should be an additional drop down there where you can select more Q&A options. As Jim mentioned, I'll also be popping in with some polling questions throughout the call so we can better understand your pain points, goals, and how we can help tailor our webinar to you specifically.
Great, thank you. Now I'd like to introduce our panelists from Redirect. Mitch and Neil, please tell us more about yourself and Redirect.
Great. So Mitch Rich, as it shows on the screen, I'm one of the principals here at Redirect Consulting. My background, I got my start working for an owner-operator where I wanted to learn how to invest in real estate, but instead got into the technology space. They needed to select a new system, help them do that, and I've been doing this ever since. We implemented at the time MRI, then went to work for MRI for a few years, and then joined Redirect over 18 years ago, where I've been in all sorts of roles, hands-on implementing MRI, Yardi, Appfolio, a project manager, involved with people management, business development, and now high-level business development and delivery oversight. And really what I have loved about Redirect from day one is that we work with our clients to help them understand what their technology needs are around their business processes, and we're able to help them through implementing and optimizing their systems. And I am split my time between New York City and suburb of Tel Aviv, Israel.
Neil?
Yes, hello everybody. Neil Kuzno here. So I'm manager of AI automation services with the Redirect team. So I oversee both our project implementations as well as the ongoing operation of our automations. We provide not just a software implementation, but also ongoing service. But prior to my role here at Redirect, I was working in technology project management, as well as acting as an automation lead for a large real estate investment trust. And I have 6 years experience with real estate technology and automation. Some of the things that excite me about this space are helping our clients to deal with ever-growing task loads, and we often see that as companies' portfolios grow through acquisitions, the back office does not necessarily also grow with it. So AI and automation solutions can help teams to right-size the workload and tackle the tedious manual tasks.
Okay, great, awesome. John, please share your background and what drives your passion for outsource accounting in real estate.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Hi, everyone. I'm John Clausa. I'm based in Chicago, and I'm a partner here at Aprio, leading our real estate accounting services practice, where we provide top quality accounting to mid-market real estate companies across the country, across a variety of structures and asset classes. Our core service offering is ongoing outsourced accounting, but we also do short-term projects, health checks, staff augmentation, things like that for our clients. In terms of background, I've spent about half my career, a little over a decade in this space. And the other half, I was in industry controller and CFO roles. So been on both the client side and the firm side, and really appreciate everyone joining and very excited for today's discussion.
Great. Sarah, do you want to start with the first polling question?
Absolutely. All right, just to get to know everybody better and so we can learn about challenges you're facing, we'd love to know which ERP you're using today. Option A, Yardi, B, MRI, C, Appfolio, or D, something else. And you should see it pop up in your screen for an easy selection there. And we'll give everybody about 30 seconds to get an answer in. Right. Great. All right. Looks like we've got a good chunk of responses in. Looks like a lot of Yardi and other. We'll have to dig into that a little bit more, see what people are using. But Jim, I'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. All right. So let's dive into why so many real estate firms are rethinking their accounting and technology strategies right now. John and Mitch, what are the biggest forces you're seeing, whether it's talent shortages, investor demands, or the rise of AI that are driving change in the industry?
So I would say that, and I was thinking about this, even shared the thoughts on LinkedIn last week a little bit, which is that because of AI, investors and owners are expecting more from the shared resources and the teams, the staff that's working for them. So if somebody says like, I expect better reporting as a result of this, it used to be that somebody would think, hey, it will take hours to pull together these reports, and they would understand that their data can only be so good because people have to spend a lot of time thinking with manual processes and the like. And today, because partially of AI and other similar tools and technologies, I believe that investors and owners, stakeholders are expecting better reporting and better reporting more quickly. And to that end, it's causing people to try to understand, well, what can we do differently? How can we do things better? So sometimes it means implementing a new tool, a new system that's going to give us better reporting. And other times we see clients that will say, hey, I don't know how to do this. There are people out there that know how to do this better. They're doing it for others. Let me see if I can outsource and get better results. But I think the common theme that we're seeing today is that there's sort of like this expectation out there that what was is not good enough for today, and people are expecting more, and therefore it's a question of how to get there.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Mitch. I think, Jim, you mentioned talent shortages is one of those. That's definitely a theme that we keep hearing. And in fact, I was just reading a study that one of the tech companies did recently that 83% of real estate financial leaders report challenges finding qualified accounting talent. So we're hearing that all the time. And really, I think there's two reasons for that. One is just the shortage of people going into accounting nowadays. I did some reading with the AICPA, and this was staggering to me, but the AICPA says that 75% of licensed CPAs have reached retirement age. That's unbelievable. And over the last 10 years, CPA exam candidates, new CPAs coming in, are down 30%. So you have fewer people coming into the profession, a lot of people exiting, a lot of shortage of just accounting acumen. And then the other side is from a technology standpoint, like Mitch mentioned, the technology is changing so rapidly. Accounting is becoming much more tech heavy. And so it's becoming increasingly challenging to find people who are specialists and who are up to date with the changing technology capabilities to make the best use of the current technologies. So talent shortages is definitely, top of what we hear. Some of the other ones I'll just go through quickly here would be the increasingly complex regulations So everything from gap compliance to fair value standards, the changing NCREIF-PREA standards, tax laws, multi-state complexities. It's not getting any simpler. We hear a lot about manual processes. Every company still has a lot of manual process in their system, in their environment. Data fragmentation, lack of integration. I think real estate is one of those industries that's probably the biggest offender here, where we've got data all over the place in legacy systems, spreadsheets, third-party manager systems, and rarely do these systems talk. So this creates this need for manual intervention, which then creates inefficiency, quality, consistency issues, et cetera, and challenges with reporting. I think the last thing I'll mention here in terms of a theme that we're hearing is just the need to scale. And really from two different standpoints. Over the last few years, we saw a significant amount of cost pressure given the real estate market. And this led to demand for outsourcing to shift from fixed internal teams to a more variable, scalable outsourcing model. And now we're hearing a lot more optimism as rates are supposed to come down and capital markets are opening up. More and more firms they're preparing for growth, and they're looking for strategies outside of just adding headcount. So I'd say those are the main themes we're hearing.
Yeah, I want to add one more thought, and it's somewhat along those lines, but specifically on the technology side. It used to be, and I remember when I started out at my first job, there was one guy on the team. He was the IT guy. He was responsible for the system that was the core accounting system and the hardware. And the core accounting system only did so much, and it did a little bit of leasing and mostly accounting, and he knew how to work that product. Today, there's so many different modules within the systems, whether it be MRI, whichever one we're talking about. They have all these different products that are part of it: the core system, investment accounting, the investor portal, leasing, online payments, vendor platforms, the different reporting tools and the like. And to have one person that's able to handle all of that, that's not even necessarily part of IT anymore. So to find one person that's able to support the whole ecosystem, if you will, from the technology side is much more challenging, and therefore that's also why people, I'd say, are looking to outsourcing on specifically that side. And I'll just also echo. I've been speaking with different people about the whole idea of how many people coming out of college are looking to be accountants. And I have a friend who runs a small accounting firm, and he said he doesn't advertise for accountants anymore. He advertises for finance people. And then he says, "Oh, I can turn them into accountants because he advertised for accounting people who's not getting anybody." And he said the finance people really are kind of accountants. Anyway, yeah, I'm not an accountant, so.
Well, I think that leads perfectly into our next polling question. Curious what your biggest monthly accounting pain point is. If it's A, staffing shortages, B, fragmented systems and manual reconciliations, assembling the reporting, or D, something else, many other options within there. We'll just give a couple more seconds there as we get all the answers in. All right. It looks like it's pretty equal across the board with a lot of fragmented systems and manual reconciliations along the way. But Jim, I think that leads perfectly into our next topic of, okay, what does great close and modern processes look like?
Yes. So let's talk about what looks great in real estate accounting today. So John, what are some of the pain points that show a firm is ready to modernize?
Yeah, so some pain points, I'd say, one, heavy reliance on manual labor-intensive processes, whether that's data entry or data retrieval. So things like downloading utility invoices, tax bills, bank statements, and doing things manually from a reconciliation and transaction matching standpoint. We hear that a lot. And so that's sort of some of those pain points that we see day to day. And then two, I'd say difficulty with reporting. And this could be, high error rate. So, as an accounting team, you're seeing a lot of reclasses, reconciliation issues, correcting journal entries, et cetera. Could be inaccurate financials where numbers are changing and people are losing confidence in the financials. We hear sometimes, leadership just knows the numbers are wrong. They know it can't be right. The things like that, and then missing deadlines associated with that. But the last pain point I'd mention, I'd say systems that just don't scale with the growth of the company. And these could be smaller systems. We see a lot of outdated kind of legacy systems. Sometimes they're still on premises. Lack of integration and automation. There's no real-time visibility. And so the technology really isn't there to support the scale. So all those pain points are things that we see that say, okay, this is a firm that's ready to modernize.
Got it. So Mitch, how are technology and automation helping firms overcome these common pain points that John just mentioned?
Yeah, so I would say one thing that we're doing more and more of these days is our business process review, where we come in and we can work together to look and understand what the current processes are and what challenges the client is having with their reporting. They say, here, this is what's going on. This is the challenge that we have at month end, and then try to understand what's driving those challenges. Sometimes it's processes. And let's say you say something is being done after a close and something's being posted and therefore not hitting the books properly, etc. But sometimes it's actually in the system configuration and setup. A lot of times these systems are real ERPs today. And this is specifically true of Yardi and MRI, where there is so much configuration that if something is configured wrong, if the accounts are set up incorrectly, the accounts and options where you put the wrong account for something to post to, or you flag something as a cash account when it's not a cash account. It sounds like a little silly thing, and if somebody's not spending the proper time when they're getting the system configured and say, hey, this should be easy, and they just go through and flip a bunch of things and say, hey, it looks good to me, then when it comes to accounting and reporting, things will be wrong. And even sometimes people are using reports that were designed for one client, they got it for somebody else, and they're saying, hey, it worked for them, it should work for me, but their underlying configuration is different. And that's something that's very difficult for clients to understand sometimes. You run a rent roll and you say, look, this is what it says. And if there's an error in the design of the report can actually be wrong. And well, we are not real estate owners. Redirect, when we bill clients, one time we were using a report, and it turned out that the report was actually wrong. And I looked back and I was like, this can't be right. And sure enough, the report designer in our billing system had created something that was wrong. Now we've audited everything, so that will never happen again. But it was like, wow. And then I see that clients, they could send out financial statements that have been designed incorrectly and therefore are giving wrong information. And then an owner could say, this must be wrong. And yes, that could in fact be the case. So therefore, it's so important to be doing that and to be analyzing and understanding if everything is working as designed and the reports are correct. So you have the processing and the reporting and the configuration of the system and the custom reports, all these different things that can be impacting, what the month end looks like. And I would also say, I love telling this story, I'll close this portion for myself, which is that when I first started at the first company, we were using MRI and we were converting data. And I really didn't understand accounting. The consultant that set this up for me from MRI, he showed me that everything had to go through this when you set up whatever it was called a cash apply at the time, or credit apply. It had to go through a clearing account. I followed that model and I set up everything went mapped to go through a clearing account. So all transactions that were being done, all processed through a clearing account. And then they asked me if I could fix the number on some tenant ledgers. So I said, sure. And I just updated the ledgers without realizing that when I was updating that, it was actually affecting cash also. So I was changing the numbers to look correct, but I was actually increasing cash on their books without realizing it. And luckily this was in a test environment, But that's a great story about how somebody, best of intentions, I was, in the IT department, was actually impacting reports. So I think all these things show why it's so important to really have a good understanding of what's going on in the system, do reviews, engage, consultants such as ourselves, to help understand and make sure things are going correctly. And then the month end will be less painful.
Good story. So, all right, well, next, let's get practical about technology. Neil, you work across all leading real estate systems like Yardi, MRI, AppFolio, and so on. What trends and challenges are you seeing?
Yeah, well, speaking broadly on AI trends with these property management systems, we see that they're all working rapidly to pilot and implement new AI-powered solutions. So they're assessing, do these new AI capabilities solve problems for clients that we couldn't solve before, or do these AI capabilities solve it better than we could before? So some general examples we've seen kind of across the board would be first for data insights. Um, we've all talked a lot about reporting this afternoon. So leadership is always following up to those reports with unique questions about the performance of the portfolio and the financials. Of course, we're used to trying to use and dig through system reports or BI tools to create different views to find the answers. But we're seeing the leading property management systems are now looking at how can they address these through conversational AI, which would involve connecting to their data sources behind the scenes in order to answer those questions more quickly. Of course, it's a challenging thing to get right because large language models are designed for language and they're working to improve their math functions, but we're seeing progress there. I'd say a second area would be just generally automating system tasks. So they're exploring some of those activities that were tedious to work through that were manually done in the system and looking at how an AI agent could perform those tasks on behalf of the clients. So some examples could be for work orders, triaging those as they come in, or automating correspondence, and then similarly for tenant or leasing communications in order to keep prospects engaged. And then a third area would be just user support. So from time to time, we all need a refresher on how to perform a certain action in the system that we might not do regularly. So that could be like creating a new suite or adding a new lease, or maybe you're covering for a teammate while they're out. But rather than searching through documentation, property management systems are working to create like a chatbot support, which would be a first tier of support to give you instant responses. And I know we all love working with humans ideally, but sometimes the cases can take a while to get responses. So this should be a way for users to get answers more quickly.
Nice. So, John, from your perspective, how do clients benefit most from these technology upgrades?
Yeah, I think there's a variety of ways. I'd say, centralizing data in one place, where you can have leasing information, project tracking, property financials, the kind of roll up to the fund, better visibility, accessibility, real-time access to metrics and KPIs would definitely be top of mind here. I'd say improved operational efficiency as well. So if you have reduced processing times for lease renewals, rent collection, vendor coordination, you're just more efficient then. You can get that done faster. One thing as an accountant that we don't always think about is it provides better tenant and vendor experiences. So providing more modern portals and making things like service requests, rent payment, invoice submissions, just more convenient and transparent, so that their interaction with you is better. Scalability, that's another one that we see that you can add modules as your business evolves. So these systems are designed to grow with you over time. The last one I'd mention is just the automation of manual tasks and the AI capabilities, from data entry and retrieval to reconciliations to invoicing and lease tracking. These modern tools help to automate as much as possible to help reduce time and human error. I know we're going to get into more on automation and AI here with Neil, so I don't want to steal Neil's thunder too much. So I'll pause
No,
there.
no, yes, I'm looking forward to Neil's presentation here. So Neil, let's dive a little bit deeper into the subject of AI. Can you explain AI automation and transformation for our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so first of all, there's a few different ways that people look at AI, but AI is really a field of study. So we're working to make computers as smart or smarter than us in our jobs, and that's really been evolving for several decades, not just the past couple of years. So that said, the interest definitely has grown rapidly with the recent advancements in generative AI. Um, but AI is broader than just your flagship generative large language models. And more often than that, it's going to take a combination of technologies to automate a business process, not just chatting with ChatGPT. So um, within the leading software platforms, I talked earlier about some of the capabilities they're trying to build into the systems. So we see more and more of that happening. But of course, outside of the native system functionalities, there's also AI tools in the marketplace that you can categorize into a few different ways, which we're representing on this slide. Um, and they can be categorized in a couple of ways. One, based on their ability to perform a single action versus more of an end-to-end flow. And then they can also be categorized based on the level of technical expertise that's required to utilize them. So the first category at the top here, conversational AI, is probably what we're all most used to interacting with personally and professionally. So these are the leading flagship models. You have the chat interface to ask questions. You can, according to your company policy, maybe give access to your data and get insights back. So that would be things like summarizing a legal agreement, like a 15-page document. Give me the top 10 main bullet points to take away. The second category here is AI workflow platforms. So in addition to the ability to use those language models, these add in more abilities to interact across platforms. And usually those depend on having pre-built API connections. Um, and for these tools, it helps to have some more technical knowledge, but they do have some user-friendly templates and interfaces. So if you are comfortable rolling up your sleeves, you might be able to put some things together. An example of that could be using like an API interaction. So you could create a ticket based on an email message. And then the third category is professional agentic AI. So in addition to everything above, these include some more technical capabilities that go beyond the simple API connections. They have a lot more flexibility. So they can use database access or utilize virtual bots that interact with user interfaces. So an example of this could be bank reconciliation automation, which would be pulling data from multiple sources, going through SQL procedures to match up transactions, and then generating queries that are loaded back into the property management system. So redirects can support clients with opportunities in each of these areas. And for the most robust solutioning, we often use UiPath software, which has a comprehensive tool set. And last year, our team received UiPath Agentic Automation Fast Track status, which highlights our experience and abilities. Um, but as I mentioned earlier, we look at AI automation as a set of technical capabilities that can be pieced together for more of an end-to-end process. So that could be either the generative AI or other capabilities that may have been around for a while. And we like to talk about our solution as being performed by Rosie the bot for fun, but also to give a persona so it's easier to talk about. And so Rosie has ability to use both brains and bronze or AI and automation. So on the AI side, we can use it for analyzing and summarizing data, creating recommendations. And then on the automation side, we can use tools like RPA bots to interact with applications, retrieve data, make updates in the system, and ultimately perform just about any action that a user could do within the system. So then, based on those technologies, here's a few use cases we've solutioned. So I'll highlight just a few of them. So bank reconciliation, I mentioned before, this is a very common pain point in real estate accounting, given that we have accounts for every property, sometimes multiple accounts, and we're pulling bank data, property management system data, going through matching procedures, and then loading queries back into the property management system to update the transactions. A second example here is bank to book, which is an automation that reviews bank activity on a daily basis and that identifies transactions that originate on the bank side to create unposted entries. So that could be items like bank fees, wire fees, interest, or even certain utilities. And then last one I'll mention would be generally data systemization. So we can use document understanding to extract data from documents and load it to a structured database. Of course, these are all activities that become burdensome with large volumes. And so we've got some example time savings based on the volume here. All right. So that is a look at the technologies, and now we'll shift over to look at organizational transformation. So many real estate companies have been experimenting with AI, either recently developed AI policies or they're working on it, and they're strategizing on how to bring transformation across their organization. So this is an area we can help clients work through. And this slide outlines our recommended approach for transformation. So we start off with the foundational items. So that'd be addressing change management, communicating the leadership's view as to how AI augments and empowers teams to do better work. And really, we're all automating tasks. We're not automating a whole role. So AI is a tool and just making lives easier. And then we also look at what technology solutions are available in the marketplace that we may want to implement, which ones would work well with the IT landscape and address the most relevant use cases. And also, it's important to define the AI policy. So this would include things like the approved tools, acceptable uses of them, prohibited uses, and this lays out the ground rules for the exploration that will follow. So then we move to the second stage, which is the early adoption. So it's a good approach to identify people within your organization that are the most open to change and interested in innovation. And so these people can become what we call departmental champions. So we start by training the champions, and then those people become the trainers or the advocates throughout the rest of the organization, and also help to capture ideas and build proof of concepts. So the goal here is to have something tangible to show and prove out the foundation before expanding it more broadly. And then the third stage, expansion. So this is where we're using those proof of concepts to gather interest and expand to additional end users. So the champions from each of the departments are then working with their organization to find the best use cases. And they're also following prioritization frameworks for deciding what to focus on. So that could be things like things that align with your company strategy, time savings, ROI, risk avoidance. And then we also want to have a forum in order for all the groups to share their ideas, challenges, and successes. So this organization provides a clear approach for where to focus efforts.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's, of course, many good AI and automation use cases in real estate. There's capabilities that can support just about every part of the organization. So you'll want to be sure to prioritize opportunities where you'll find the biggest impact. And of course, first look at what capabilities exist within your existing application landscape. And then you can also look to pre-built solutions that are in the marketplace that could be added onto your application landscape. Or in some cases, you may look to build your own solutions or work with consulting to tailor something for your organization. All right, so we've spent some time looking over the overview and organizational transformation. I'm sure people are interested to see something in action. So we've got a couple of examples here that we'll go through, getting into the weeds, so to speak. But the first one I have is for property tax entry. So based on where your properties are located, your teams need to enter property tax information to your property management system from multiple different municipality sites on varying schedules. And so doing this for tens or hundreds of properties can take a significant amount of time. And it's also prone to human error. Of course, any of us can make a typo after working through something tedious like that. And we have a solution. We've set up Rosie the bot to take care of this work so we can save time, avoid those errors, and see results faster. So here's the high-level steps involved in the process. So first, Rosie's able to gather the tax information, pulling the parcel information from various county websites. And then second, Rosie's able to enter the information into your property management system, such as due dates and amounts. And then from there, for parcels that are paid by escrow, Rosie can create a record of verifying the tax as well as an entry in the system. Or alternatively, for parcels that are paid by the owner, Rosie can initiate payment and post those. And so here we get to see the bot in action. This is just one example of a county tax website. Of course, municipalities will have different formats and navigation. So part of the great thing of automation is we can navigate, program Rosie to navigate different municipality sites to see where to pull the correct information. So first step is that Rosie would be entering a parcel ID to find the appropriate parcel. And then when that screen loads, Rosie would be programmed to identify where the installment amount and due date are located and store that into a database. So Rosie would be doing this for all the parcels across your portfolio, potentially multiple municipality sites, which nobody wants to be doing, but Rosie doesn't mind. So then once she has all the information, Rosie would log into the property management system. I will say this is, as you can tell, just a mock-up of a property management system, but we're using it to illustrate the steps here. So after receiving the data, Rosie's logged in. She's entering the tax. She's entering the tax installment information for the property code, the county, the tax year, amount, and due date. And then for the parcels where the taxes are paid by escrow, Rosie's programmed to enter the journal entry. So Rosie's entering the amounts, the debit and credit information, and the bot can also be configured to enter any specific note information that you may want. And those are entered as unposted for review by your team. And again, this is all configurable for your organization and your own accounting processes. And I just want to reiterate what you're seeing on the screen is entirely being done by the virtual bot. It's just showing how she can navigate and interact with the user interface. So then moving on, for the taxes that are paid by owner, Rosie would be programmed to create the invoice in the system for payment. So enter the payee, the amount, the post month, due date. So again, this is just a mock-up of an application. We can configure it to whichever property management system or system of record that you may use. And we've got a couple more visual examples of automation in action, and these will be just more of a quick glimpse of the capabilities. So for automated data entry, one popular use case would be for entering invoices. So Rosie can utilize document understanding technologies to find the necessary data points on the invoices, which are semi-structured documents, meaning the location would be different based on a different vendor. And so document understanding is able to interpret which is the right data point to pull. So what you can see on screen is that identification has already happened. So then the next step is for the bot to enter that into your system. So Rosie could be programmed to associate to a purchase order if that was necessary. And Rosie is also programmed to enter the key data points, which you'll see on screen here. So invoice number, the address, she'll put in the contact information, invoice date, and due dates, and then the bot could also save a copy of the file. And even initiate the next step to send it for approval. And then the last use case in action I'll show would be for software testing. So some of you might be involved in testing upgrades to your property management system or ERP. And so when your software vendor releases a new version with new features, you may be going through tedious test scripts to test both the original functionality as well as the new features that are released with that iteration. So that could be things like creating various types of journal entries or creating leases in the system, charges, maybe running reports to compare that the data ties to the previous version. So we can program Rosie to work through those tedious steps, which could be initiated anytime there's a new version released. And so Rosie can create the records in the system and report on any errors that occur. And that would allow your team then to not only test more scenarios, more iterations, but also shift the focus to looking at the results as well as maybe new functionality that came out. So then the slide here, this is an example illustrating a banking system, but it's the same concept where you're seeing the individual steps associated with creating a request in the system. And so we program Rosie to work through each of those activities and then report the results of what was done, as well as taking screenshots of any errors that would occur and putting that into a output report as well.
Wow, that is very impressive, Neil. Oh,
Thanks. Yeah, so in summary, we have 3 different approaches to support clients on AI transformations. So first would be point solutions, where we have several popular automations that we can deliver and configure for your organization to fit your system. So that could be things like the bank rec automation, bank to book, reporting. Second, we also can build automations tailored to your unique needs. So that could be something that your software vendor hasn't been able to automate just based on the standard functions of the system. And then finally, we also offer what we call AI Center of Excellence, which is where we work with you on an ongoing partnership and provide a framework for AI transformation, as well as the resources to implement and maintain the solutions. So we can answer any questions we have at the end, but I'll hand it back to you, Jim.
oh no, I was just like, I find that very impressive. I think that's really cool. So Sarah, do you have a
Yeah.
follow-up question?
Yeah, no, and Neil, it looks like those are going to save teams a lot of time. And we all know Neil's tech stack is fully optimized, but curious for pool number three, how optimized you think your current real estate tech stack is. Fully optimized, somewhat optimized, not optimized, or not sure yet where you fall on the spectrum of Neil to not optimized. And we'll get just a few seconds to answer those. And then just another reminder, if you drop questions in the Q&A function at the bottom, we'll make sure that we get to our panelists. Or if we do end up running out of time, we'll make sure that we follow up with answers to your Q&A questions after the webinar. But we'd love to get as many of those in as we can for our panelists live. All right. Okay, so it seems like we have somewhat, kind of not sure where we're falling on the spectrum and a good bit of not optimized. All right, I'll send it back to you, Jim.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's shift to how firms can choose the right source, the right outsource partner and service model. So John, how do you help clients decide between full outsourcing and functional outsourcing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess first maybe we can take a second and just define full outsourcing versus functional outsourcing. So full outsourcing would be if you hire an external provider to handle all tasks, whereas functional is really just what it sounds like. You're outsourcing a particular function or functions like lease admin, AP, bank recs, et cetera. And then in terms of determining which model is best for clients, there really isn't a one size fits all here. We really like to spend time understanding the size of the organization, the culture, kind of what are their current pain points and what are their reasons for outsourcing. What's the repurposability of the current staff? I think I made up a word there. I don't know if repurposability is a word, but think through all those things. But ultimately, it's a client-driven decision, and we'll help think through that together. But a lot of it will depend on how much control the client wants to retain over a particular function. And really, you want to make sure you're outsourcing those functions that'll solve your immediate pain points and really start making people's lives better right out of the gate.
So how do you help clients understand the value and investment of working with an outsourced accounting team versus a basic bookkeeping provider?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jim. So our practice definitely prioritizes quality and expertise because I think we've all seen too many cases where you get what you pay for. You might engage a low-cost outsourcing provider that's really more bookkeeping than it is accounting, and I think a lot of that is going away. We've seen a couple of firms, bookkeeping firms, unfortunately, have to close shop recently, and I think with everything we've kind of touched on here with AI and automation, there really isn't a market for bookkeeping anymore. It's really becoming more accounting, but we generally see the quality of the work product from those low-cost providers being kind of inconsistent, unreliable, leads to a lot of rework, a lot of delays, and real costs. So, the outsourcing fee itself may be low, but the client ends up overspending because they also have to employ people internally to review and correct the work of the outsourcing firm, not to mention other impacts of potential delays in external reporting, staff morale, and things like that. So when you engage with an outsourcing provider, you should be viewing this as a long-term partnership. So you want to pick someone who will be a good extension of your team, who really listens to you, understands what you're trying to accomplish, and someone that'll be a great partner in helping you get there. If you're engaging with and paying for a premier provider, things you should expect that they bring industry expertise. You should expect that they have dedicated resources, high levels of accuracy, clear points of escalation. They should be bringing ideas to you for improvement in process, technology, reporting, et cetera, not just doing what you tell them to do. They should be all over industry trends and bringing those to you. On the intangible side, I'd also try to get a sense for how happy their employees are. and how cohesive of a team they have. Engaging a firm with a strong culture who treats their people well will absolutely have a positive impact on your experience interacting with them on a day-to-day basis, and provide that consistent reliability that you just won't get if there's high turnover at the firm.
100%. Mitch, some firms hesitate to invest in technology upgrades. How do you help clients see the ROI of optimizing their Yardi, MRI, AppFolio, or whatever they're using? And why is that investment so critical for scaling and reporting?
So the investment is so critical because if you don't have a good foundation, then what you're building on and scaling on top of is just going to collapse. And the reporting is not going to be helpful. And as you grow and you need to be able to report on more, it becomes more and more challenging. So I look at it from two perspectives. On the one hand, there are some clients where the investment will be realized based on people being able to do more and be more effective and spend more time on analysis and less time on gathering data and trying to pull things together. And sometimes it's as simple as people having better quality of work life, and therefore being more successful at what they're doing. I remember was once working with a company, and we said, if you're able to optimize this payable process right now, the CFO is signing every check manually. There's no way he's thinking about each check that he's signing, but you just make him sign it. If you optimize this process, you'll be able to have him think more about the ones that are important. And then we said, well, he's spending so much time reporting. He's in the office until like 11 o'clock every night. And I remember the owner saying, that doesn't bother me. But hopefully we want people to be having good balance and working, in reasonable ways and not spending time on things that they don't need to be spending time on, and being as effective as possible, taking away work that they're not adding value with. So if somebody, again, is not able to actually review their check before signing them, if they had to review less checks because, anyone that was, let's say, under $2,500, let's say, automatically got through at this company based on certain rules, then he could actually look at the ones that were above. So that's one style of return on investment, making things more effective. And the other is just having good reporting. We talked about this at the beginning, so we're coming full circle on this conversation, but that the reason that they should invest is because, like I said, if you're not building on a solid foundation, the scaling will cause everything to collapse. And if you have a company, we worked once with a property management company, and they were fine. They were relatively small, and they were doing it by, I like to call it the brute force model, just that people were working really, really hard. And then as they were growing, the company was really, it was threatening their business viability because they weren't able to get reports out because they had more clients, and they couldn't just use the brute force model. And therefore, when we try to talk to clients, there are clients, if a client is staying the same size and everything's working for them and people have manageable life, and they say, we're working on an old system, but we're basically can do what we want, and, we're looking to stay the same size, our ownership is happy. Okay, that's fine. That's great for them. They don't need to invest. But that's the exception of the clients that we're speaking with, that, people either, a lot of times they want to be able to grow and take on more and grow revenue and the like. And therefore, they need to be able to be in a place where they can scale up, and you need a solid foundation to do so.
Okay, great. Well, why don't we jump to the last polling question, Sarah?
Yeah, we're curious how many people in our audience have engaged in some sort of outsourcing for your accounting function so far. Option A, yes, we're currently outsourcing. B, yes, we considered it but decided against it. No, we haven't outsourced but are considering it, as option C. And option D, no, not really something that we're interested in right now. Kind of a last call for Q&A questions for our panelists here. We've got a couple coming in. I think we might have just a minute or two in a minute to address them. All right, Jim, I'll go ahead and let you give our next steps as we move through here.
Okay, we'll do. So yeah, let's take a minute about wrap up and next steps, and then we'll go to some Q&A. So as we wrap up, many attendees are probably wondering what's the best way to get started if you're considering a technology upgrade or outsourcing. John, can you walk us through how a client may begin assessing their current processes and technology stack? And what does the first step look like?
Yeah, sure. And I'll go fast here. I know we're running short on time. So I'd say put together a list of pain points, put together a wish list for your accounting function, and then determine whether you have the internal expertise and bandwidth to accomplish that. Simple as that. And regardless of what that answer is or what your wish list includes, we're always available for a conversation just to help bounce ideas off and help think through those options. I think a good first step is to reach out to any of us here, and we'd be happy to have an introductory meeting and help get you pointed in the right direction.
Right, and don't you give a gratis comprehensive health check, if they really want to assess where they're at?
Yeah, so we do. So we find this really helps provide some fast feedback to clients. So one of the ways we start working with a client is to provide a health check on their current structure. So we can complete this in as little as a couple of weeks, and the cost is fairly minimal. What you get is a high-level assessment of your current processes, tech stack, and recommendations for aligning with current industry best practices. And it's really just a quick hit assessment that helps clients better understand how they stack up to the industry. And it's a great first step to making improvements.
Great. All right, Sarah, should we go to some Q&A?
All right. We might have time for one each, so I'll see if we can get through that, and anything. I've seen some other ones come through the chat, and we'll get back to you right after the webinar on individual questions coming through that we don't get to. All right, Mitch, the first one is for you or Neil. What are the most common mistakes firms make when implementing AI-powered tools in accounting workflows?
I can take that one.
Yeah, great. Yeah, go ahead.
So I would say it's important to keep in mind that although AI can appear to be just such a simple way to chat and get answers, you still want to take the right typical technology implementation approach. So still go through those foundational steps of defining the requirements, assessing different options in the market to select something that's going to be a good fit. And then mapping out the process, defining who's responsible for what aspects, because yes, AI has some intelligence, but ultimately we still need to have somebody responsible. And so we commonly call that human in the loop aspect. And then another thing to think about is as you're developing the solution, consider what are the things that could go wrong, and then how do you build in the right checkpoints to monitor those things.
Great. Wonderful. All right, last one I think we can squeeze in here. John, I think this would be more for you. How do you balance automation with the need for human oversight on the accounting end?
Yeah, so definitely a balance, similar to what Neil mentioned. So I'd say we're still in that kind of trust but verify mode where we're relying on automation, but still need to make sure it's running correctly, producing the intended results, that it makes sense. So while you can take some tasks off people's plates, their roles are definitely shifting more to oversight, analytical roles, and people ultimately still have to take responsibility for accuracy of their books.
Great. All right, I think that's it for what we can do for questions, but feel free to keep dropping them in the chat and we'll be sure to get back to you. And Jim, I'll let you wrap up here.
Well, thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, everybody. I'm sure the audience did too. Thank you in the audience for joining us today. We will send a follow-up email with today's recording and resources. So thank you again, and hopefully we see you at our next webinar.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.